Hello everyone and welcome to the 15th episode of Viral Banter. We are so excited about the feedback we are getting from this show and all the Generation Liberty members who are listening right now. Today we have 4 amazing guests again. Let's start with a familiar face. He is our favourite economics student. Welcome, Ryan.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
How are you, Ryan?
Good. Thank you.
Well, you must be good because you're in the free north of Queensland. And
For now.
For now. And another familiar face to the show. We all know him and love him. It's Luca, who has unfortunately been grounded like me in Victoria.
Hi, Renee. Yes, unfortunately still stuck in lockdown. Hopefully it doesn't get extended though, but I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we got to be really well behaved so Dan Andrews doesn't continue to ground us. So... And now a new face to the Generation Liberty team. He is coming to us all the way from Vietnam. Welcome, yes. Boris.
Yes, hello, Renee. Yes, the free Vietnam, as it would seem, compared to what I'm seeing in Victoria right now. But,
so do you have many restrictions in Vietnam?
No, the only time we notice the coronavirus epidemic is when we go buy fuel from the local server. But that's about it. Everything's open for business, except bars, which are mildly closed right now because there's a second wave. But otherwise, no difference.
So the communist country is freer than Melbourne right
yes,
now.
It's ironic seeing a hammer and sickle waving from every street corner, but
that is so strange. And a very special guest on the show. She is a Generation Liberty member and a part of the ATA team who are great friends of the show. Welcome, Julia Kokic.
Thank you so much for having me, Renee.
How are you doing?
I'm super well. I'm psyched to be here.
Can you tell us just a little bit about the work you do at the ATA, Julia?
I work at the Australian Taxpayers Alliance, which fights over regulation, taxation and government waste. It's a really great organisation, do a bit of writing, a bit of research and a bit of fundraising. So yeah, it's a great time.
That's really awesome to hear. And last week we did touch on the changes to the HEX system, meaning that new students who fail half their subjects could lose access to HEX unless they had a legitimate reason like illness or hardship. But since Julia is here and she wrote an excellent article on this issue in the Daily Telegraph, I thought that we should revisit it this week. So Julia, could you give us quickly just your thoughts on these changes?
Thanks, Renee, for the shout out. It's no secret that I'm a big supporter of these changes to HEX. I think you see a lot of kids enroll in uni, bending to social expectations when really they'd be far better off pursuing an alternative. So I reckon these changes are a great preventative measure to protect young people from accumulating gross amounts of debt without even a degree to show for it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because I think a lot of people who are for these changes get kind of painted as unempathetic and that they don't have students' best interest at heart. But really, I think it's the opposite way round when you look at the long-term results. Ryan, what do you think about these changes? Do you think they're justified?
I really enjoyed Julia's article and I think her thoughts very much aligned with my own. I think maybe the 2 caveats I would like to see is to make sure that it's not a permanent loss to HEX. As someone who at 18 went to uni and failed 2 out of 4 of their first subjects and not for any justifiable reason, if I had been a little bit more disengaged and then lost permanent access to HEX, I wouldn't have been able to go back as a mature age student as I have. Like, it just wouldn't have been viable. I think the other thing is that it would be really nice to have some sort of experience-based support system for young people as well before they get to this point, so they have some better idea of what the content is or the thing they think they want to study, but also what the experience is like of a day-to-day role in that field.
Yeah, I think those are some really interesting points. Yeah, I went back, I got through my first degree, but I did it at a smaller university and then I moved up to a bigger university, Sydney University, for my master's and got access to HEX for both of those. But yeah, I can understand that, yeah, it shouldn't be permanent. If you can make the grades for another degree, then I think that you should get access, but I don't know how that would work. I don't know if there are exceptions. Boris, what do you think of these changes?
So I really think that the whole university system at this point is just like a bloated form of procrastination, where students again fall into the social norms of going to university, and I'm not really sure Australia needs how much, like 70% of the population highly educated, compared to when you think, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, there was 1% of the population highly educated, and everyone else was like, building things. So yeah, I'm actually very happy that they're restricting all the university policies to make it less easy for students just to fall into that. So maybe they have to think a little bit more about, is university actually right for them?
Yeah, and also it's a bit of a misnomer to think that like university is the only place that you can get that level of higher education these days. With the internet and the access to information that we have, I find that I learned a lot more in my day-to-day life and my own research than I did in a lot of my university tutorials and university classes. Luca, do you find that to be the case sometimes?
Yeah, look, 100% agree with you, Renee. It seems as if with the rise of YouTube and things like that, people can get an education from basically anywhere. And to be honest, considering we're in Victoria and we've basically been shut down and universities are just bloated YouTube channels at this point anyway, you can basically just go onto YouTube and look at, I don't know, Khan Academy. I don't know if any of you guys remember that, but that was a thing for me for a long time. Back in like grade 5, I was learning about Cartesian planes because why the heck not? And now you can go onto channels like Jordan Peterson where they have 2.5-hour long lectures on the psychology of the Bible. Whereas before that was like, the universities were the gatekeepers for that kind of knowledge. And all of a sudden we have this great big wide world on the internet where you can go and basically find just about anything. And universities at this point, especially with lockdowns demanding, 10 grand a year from students for YouTube videos that they don't even have to really put effort into. It's just slides and them talking. It just seems as if it's almost a waste of money. And it's like, I can learn a lot of these things outside of university now. So I think bringing it back to HEX, bringing in some kind of system whereby not only students have to keep themselves accountable, but universities have to keep themselves accountable with the kind of education that they're providing is just that much more important. So that universities become an institution once more that isn't just the fallback. It's a priority and it's a goal and it's something that a student has to seriously consider before going into.
Yeah, I really agree there. And even people at like the higher education levels, like my husband, when he was after he completed his PhD and he was working on a Magna Carta book for the IPA, he was going onto YouTube and you could get lecture series from Oxford and Cambridge, which he's like, this is amazing that I can access this. So the options are there for everyone and everyone's using them. And I think Jordan Peterson's touched on this. It's really, I think, the new direction of education is going that way. This kind of independent education and also online education, I think, is going to have a huge wave going into the future. But on the topic of teaching standards, I thought we should talk about the changes in New South Wales right now. So there are some proposed changes to students right now who are doing their HSC or VCE or HSC in New South Wales, and the level of ATAR they would have to get if they were going to do a teaching degree. So it would mean that they have to get a minimum of 70 and also maintain a certain grade during their course. Julia, what do you think of these proposed changes?
Thanks, Renee. I'm a huge supporter of these changes. Like, teachers play such an imperative role in preparing like our next generations, and they're super formative years. Both my parents are teachers, so very close to home. I actually heard a few unions on the telly last night saying, oh, becoming a teacher is not about intellect or coursework, it's about their personality. And I just found that completely absurd. I mean, of course, like, an engaging personality is important, but I mean, they have to be able to teach the coursework. Do we really want to be entrusting, formative and, malleable young people to teachers who are just subpar? So I completely support these changes. though like I do support like certain caveats. I mean, you know, people experience a host of like external factors during their HSC that may have affected that, but generally speaking, I do support there being a standard of entrance which is higher than it is at the moment.
Yeah, I really agree. And I think a lot of the focus around quality of education has been misdirected, especially in the last 2 decades. This obsession with small class sizes, according to most studies, especially one done by the Grattan Institute, small class sizes do not have this that big of an effect. Quality of teacher actually has a much larger effect. So personally, I would much rather see, going back to when I was a kid, there was classes of 32 sometimes, and having a higher educated and better teacher standard, and less of them and bigger classes, and see what that produces. But Ryan, what are your thoughts on changes like this?
I find this really tricky. I have a lot of teachers in the family too, and I'm usually for anything that improves the quality of education and of teachers, but I feel like the policy just as it is, and even talking about lower student numbers in classes, a lot of the studies and these things are based on test scores, and test scores aren't really the measure of a person. I don't think should be the way in which we measure everything about a student's outcome for their future and for their opportunities. So I think like it has potential. I think if it was paired with some other things, I'm not sure that it's a bad next step in any way in order to get more and better teachers, but I'm not sure if just this by itself is enough.
Yeah, that's a good point. I really think they need to look at the standard and the level of what we're actually teaching teachers before they become, they enter the classroom, looking into the coursework that they do. But Luca, what are your thoughts on this?
Geez, looks like we got all these families of teachers here because my dad's a teacher, and I actually work as a tutor part-time as well. So this definitely hits quite close to home. And yeah, it's kind of scary thinking like, you know, I'm not doing a teaching degree. I'm just doing this as part-time. And yet I'm just about as qualified as some of the teachers going through a teaching degree right now. It's slightly scary, very, very slightly. But I think, yeah, it's difficult to implement something like this without taking a holistic perspective. Like, you know, maybe there could be an introduction of something like, I know medicine has an interview system, for example, which is actually a big emphasis of getting into university, where you have to do it, at least at Monash, you have to do an interview where it talks about like, why do you want to be a doctor, that kind of stuff like that. So maybe bringing in something like that. So yeah, it's not only based on just test scores, but it's also based on a holistic perspective of the teacher coming in, because yes, intelligence is important. It's incredibly important. And also being able to engage with students is very important, having the drive and the passion, because I think we all know we've had teachers who seem like, you know, they're about a year or two off from retirement and they really don't want to do it anymore. So having some kind of system like that could work. But look, as a starting point, I think introducing this kind of baseline is just a step in the right direction, really, so that students can have more confidence in their teachers and not be sitting there like I think a lot of us did, thinking, gosh, I really could be doing better than this teacher right now. And I don't want to hear this teacher anymore because I think I could do it better myself. So yes, I think this is a step in the right direction at the very least.
Yeah, I like you bringing up that point that education, intelligence isn't everything with a teacher as well. I remember I had a maths teacher in high school who was obviously very gifted at maths, and like I think he did more and more maths degrees than the basic teaching requirements. But I think because he never struggled with maths just came to him so fast. He was really bad at trying to teach other people how to do it. He couldn't break it down for people who didn't have that kind of maths brain. So a lot of my fellow peers found me quite a frustrating teacher. But Boris, what do you think about these changes to teaching?
Well, I really think that all of these sort of teaching policies about funding the school system more and decreasing class sizes and now there's new changes with the ATAR policy, I think it's really all just band-aids on a bigger problem. And I really think like the rest of the government, you need to be able to fire teachers. And then the market will figure itself out. We'll find the best teachers and the best quality based on not just like intelligence, but also like teaching abilities and all sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really important point there, and we've seen how much that can work. The ability to fire teachers, improving the system through charter schools in the US, which generally a lot of them actually hire exclusively non-unionized teachers, and because it's a private kind of industry entering a school system, they can pretty much dictate how they're going to run this school based on what's best for that community. So in really difficult communities, they realize that discipline is the thing that's lacking. So they basically run them like military schools. And you've had these schools that were like some of the lowest ranking coming up to some of the highest ranking, just by the ability to be able to change for that area. And that's one of the biggest problems in Australia, is the national curriculum is that everyone has to learn the same thing. I don't think that's how you build a stronger society. I can see you nodding there, Ryan. Are you against the national curriculum as well?
Yeah, there's just no room for trial and error at a state level or even a local level. That's so unfortunate. And like, people learn in different ways. People want to learn different things. I'm not saying that everything should be a Steiner school or open plan learning, but just some flexibility would be spectacular.
Yeah, I really agree there. But yeah, going back to teachers and teaching standards, I thought we'd have a little bit of a fun talking about some of our worst and best teachers we had. So I'm going to ask you if you can remember a teaching moment that sticks in your mind from school. We're not going to mention names. And that can be an amazing teacher and a bad teacher, and how you think that kind of affected you in school. So, Boris, we'll start with you.
Well, I really think that ever since they got rid of the cane, they haven't been able to attract the right sort of crowd with teaching. So I don't know. Like, yes, of course, I'm joking. Well, I don't know. My mother's Eastern European, so she's very harsh when it comes to teaching as well, and making sure I do my homework. But I really think always the best teachers were always the ones that sort of made sure you did what you said you'd do. No questions asked. That's it. Whatever you say you do, you have to do it. If you say, yeah, I'll do the homework, then if the homework's not done, it's a bit of a disaster. And opposite is obviously the teacher, which takes a very, very, very laissez-faire approach to teaching. But at the same time, I noticed that those teachers generally created, like, because obviously a student can't sit there without their phone for 2 hours at a time without coming up with stuff to do. And in all those classes where the teachers did nothing, people came up with stuff to do. And the stuff they came up was sometimes too smart for the class.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny how that approach can change from year to year. I had a very good English teacher in year 12 who was very laissez-faire, or not really. If you wanted to learn, he'd spend all the time in the world with you. But if you didn't, he had no time for you. He's like, if you're in year 12 and you haven't figured it out yet and you don't want to learn, I'm not going to waste my time with you. And I actually thought that was a pretty policy once you get to that age. Ryan, do you remember any specific teaching moments?
We had this great maths teacher in high school. It's pretty hard to make maths fun sometimes, I think, but like in between calculus spiels, he would slip in, like, gaslight us with these fake autobiographical accounts, the highlight of which was him maintaining that he was 70 years old. And if you looked at this man, he like 45, 50 max. He was just like, no, I'm 70. He was just like really calm about it. And we'd always try and catch him out. He'd be like, oh, what year were you born, sir? He'd be like, 1935. And it was this wonderful way to keep everybody sort of thinking about something else in the back of their mind, or just thinking, I guess, while they were in class and engaged.
I like that sound of that teacher. Julia, do you have any distinctive memories of teachers?
Yeah, I can't really talk about like a specific moment because, 3 years ago, it's a lifetime ago. But I had the most incredible Indonesian language teacher. And it's super funny. She was like super duper oka. But when she spoke Indo, she was so authentic. And every week she'd bring us like all these lollies, and I think I just gained so many kilos during those classes because I was just on a sugar high all through year 12 because of her. But she was fantastic, and she not only had the substance of a great teacher, but she also had incredible communication skills. And I find this is like an issue at uni. Sometimes they have like the substance of like the content, but they don't have the delivery down pat, and so then they're not able to kind of transfer that knowledge to you. So yeah, no, she was fantastic. She ticked all the boxes.
Well, the reason for that, that note thing you notice at universities is actually because they don't receive any teaching training. So I know my husband was a PhD student, and as soon as he started his PhD, they just threw him into tutorials. And he was fine at it and he enjoyed it. But you can imagine for some people, like that would be quite a daunting task. You were just a student before, and then you get thrown into teaching other students, and it's kind of learn as you go. Luca, do you have any really distinctive teaching memories?
Oh, yes, indeed. Indeed. There were many, many moments. I've actually probably got two. The first one was where I lost trust in teachers. And then the second one was where I gained trust again. Back in primary school, the teachers, I probably went to one of the worst primary schools ever. And it wasn't just because the teachers were woefully underqualified and very, 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 let's just say they really favored their own kids. It was, they would walk around outside in barefoot and teach barefoot. And it was just the most
Don't you
unprofessional.
live in Belgrave, though?
Well, yeah, that's probably part of the problem. I guess it's just a reflection of the area. But they would walk around outside and like I'd be sitting on the floor in front of this teacher's cracked feet, and I'm going, what the heck? Why is this a thing? What happened to professionalism? 11-year-old me was thinking, what happened to professionalism? What does that say about these teachers? Right? So I lost faith. And then in year 11, actually, I was doing Italian 3-4. I must be a thing with language teachers. I was doing Italian, and we had to do, in the lead up to our oral exam, we had weekend classes, and our prof, short for professore, would come in and bring fruits. She'd bring like prosciutto, mortadella. She'd bring her coffee machine so that we could have coffee, because we'd be going there at like 9 a.m. on Saturdays to do practice. So she'd be like, hey, buon cafe, here you go, here's a coffee, right? And she was just probably one of the most engaging, one of the most, just really, really great all-around teachers. Who was both, I mean, she was strange. She knew Japanese. No, she was Japanese, grew up in Italy, married an Australian, so had an Australian last name. It was very strange. So she could speak Japanese and Italian fluently, and English. And she was just one of the nicest all-around wholesome teachers. Really restored my faith in the education system to an extent.
I like that, losing faith and restoring faith. It actually reminds me, I was a very, very odd kid in primary school, and I used to actually do a test with my teachers at the beginning of every year, and I would sit in the classroom and watch the blackboard like super, super carefully and wait for them to make a mistake, like whether it be a mathematical error or a spelling error, and I would point it out. And how they reacted would be like how I gauged them. So I had most teachers, I would say, were like, oh, well done, Renee. I'm glad you're paying attention. Thank you for pointing that out. But I had two teachers in my 7 years of primary education who got angry, who were like, oh, how dare you? That's, you're being like disrespectful to me to point that out. You're the student, I'm the teacher. And those teachers, I was like, okay, I am going to be like the thorn in your side for the rest of the year. So my reports were like, Renee is wonderful. She is such a good student. And then the other years, Renee is such a smart aleck. She's so annoying. She drives me nuts. So it was a very, very odd system. But I actually stand by it. I think if you're a teacher who gets annoyed by a kid pointing out a mistake, or by a kid who's a little bit, precocious, then I don't think you should be in the job. Mm-hmm. But okay, now we're going to test your education, because we're moving on to the very, very exciting part of the show, Viral Banter Battle. This is when two of our guests go head-to-head to see who is the bigger nerd. I mean, who is the bigger expert on Roman history this week. So very luckily, I had my husband, the historian in the house, available to write these questions. And Luca and Boris are going to go head-to-head. Did you both bring a buzzer?
Yes. Yes, I did. Mine is a teacup and a teaspoon.
And
all right,
Boris, what is your buzzer?
I'll wave the coaster in front of the camera.
Okay, so The first question is, who made Christianity Rome's official religion? Boris?
Was it Emperor Constantine?
Incorrect.
Oh,
Luca?
jeez. Are you kidding?
Oh, no.
Oh, no, he
That
might
was
have been
my guess.
There, no.
No.
Hmm.
Okay. It was if it was not
I'll give you both a tip. It starts with T.
Emperor Tiberius?
No, both incorrect. It's Theodosius.
Ah,
Oh yeah, of course, 100%.
oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely.
When did the Eastern Roman Empire fall? Boris?
East. That's the Byzantine one, yes? Yes. Was it 1513?
Not quite. Luca?
Mm.
Give points for the closest.
It's somewhere near, it's like 1400s or 1500s. I'm going to go with 1440.
You are closest, Luca. It was 1453.
Well done.
So, next question. True or false? After Rome conquered Carthage, they salted the earth so nothing would grow.
True.
Boris? Actually, it is.
Oh, you're kidding.
It is false. It is a 19th century story that is widely
I'm
believed.
skeptical. I'd like to meet this historian.
I can go get him for you. Okay. And what was Caligula's real name? Luca?
We have to say the entire thing because if I recall, it's quite long.
No, just his first name.
His first name. I don't know his first name, but I think his last name was like Germanicus, I believe it was. And his first name, I'm gonna go with. Yeah, that's right. The way I used to remember this was because I would always call him the Boyo because his name is Gaius.
Yes, correct, Luca. So
Yeah.
that is 2 points to Luca, and Boris is yet to get a point on the board yet. So,
He's Italian. What can I do?
who infamously sacked Rome in 410 AD?
The German barbarians.
I need the name of the ruler.
Yes.
The name of the ruler?
Or the
Name-
the head of
the
the
German
army or
king.
whatever.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure the tribe was the Visigoths, if I'm not
What was
mistaken.
the Gauls?
Nah, the Gauls. I think the Gauls were later.
Oh,
Luca, you are correct. It is the Visigoths.
okay. Jesus.
So
Just talking
I'll
this
give
way.
you 1 point for that. But if you can name the head of the Visigoths, you'll get an extra point.
No clue. Absolutely no clue.
It was Alaric the Visigoth.
Well, I got half of it.
So that's 3 points
The
to
Visigoth.
Luca, and Boris is yet to score.
How many questions left?
So there are 2 questions left, but I'll make them both worth 2 points.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if you get both of them right, you can. We'll get to a tiebreaker. So, who witnessed and described the eruption of Mount Vesuvius?
Jesus. So that's with next to Pompeii, yes?
Yes, that's the one that absolutely annihilated Pompeii.
That's the one that they did just gone.
You're thinking of the correct one.
Okay.
I'll give you a tip. It's someone the younger.
I'll let Boris go.
Oh, you'll let me go, will you?
Boris, do you know this?
Let's go with Martinius the Younger.
Incorrect. Luca?
Wait. Yes, I think I've got it. It's isn't it Pliny the Younger? Pliny?
Correct.
Oh my god. Luca, stop it. Well, at least I'm in the right book. I'm pretty happy with that. But,
I'm pretty sure the guy was a lawyer, actually, so that's probably how I've heard of him.
Okay, this is the final question, and I think it's my favorite question. So, what official position did the Gracchi brothers hold? I'll give you a tip. The word is used now on the internet. Or part of the title is used now on the internet.
You've got me there. I don't understand. Ryan, please help me. Ryan, do you know?
I feel like I knew plenty, but Gracchi, no. I feel like I should know.
Julia, do you have any idea?
No, nothing is coming to
Okay,
mind.
I think you're gonna hate yourselves for not knowing this. It's Tribune of the Plebs, which is amazing. And that's where the term comes from. It's really great. So,
Tribune of the Plebs.
correct. Yes.
Oh my gosh, what?
It's amazing. When Zach gave me that question, I'm like, I love this question. So, at the end of that, I think Luca is on 6 points, and unfortunately, Boris is on 0 points.
Close win.
So,
It was a nail-biting one.
Boris, you'll have to come back another week with a different topic and take back your glory from Luca.
I will. Don't you worry. He can count on it.
You're on, Boris. You're on.
We will be doing Russian history next year.
Oh, you watch out, boy.
Out of Mediterranean.
If you're going to do Russian history, I'll have to bring in Theodora, and I think she'll wipe the floor with everyone. But that was definitely some great fun, and I would like to thank all my guests for an amazing 15th episode of Viral Banter. Luca, Boris, Ryan, and Julia, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks very much for having us, Renee.
If you are not a member of Generation Liberty yet, you can join now at generationliberty.org.au for only $10, and you will get an awesome welcome pack including books, stickers, bottle openers, lots of awesome stuff, and also updates on this show and all things Generation Liberty happening in the future. We've got an action-packed year planned ahead. But Julia, can you tell our viewers how they can learn more about the ATA and how they can support it?
Sure. So just chuck in Australian Taxpayers Alliance into Google or Facebook, should pop up, and you can see a bunch of info about our campaigns on tax regulation and government waste. And also on our website, there are a host of membership options if you want to support us financially, and you can explore that on our website if you're interested.
Thank you for that, Julia. Well, we're going to wrap up the show for this week. And for now, thank you for listening, and make sure that you stay safe, stay happy, and stay free.